You're having trouble with that again?
No, it's live.
It is? Okay. So this morning's talk is going to be a very traditional topic called the 3 marks of existence. 3 marks of existence, that's something I've talked about quite a number of times over the last number of years. And it is basically that everything or everyone or every situation is suffering or discontent or dissatisfied, or things are not quite right, to put the simple situation. Even when you're having fun, there's that feeling that it's going to come to an end. You notice that when you're having a really, really good time, you'll have these thoughts, well, this can't last. So you're already suffering right in the middle of your merry-go-round, tilt-a-whirl. So, and of course, there's all the extension of suffering where things are just, anytime you have incredibly sensitive nerve endings, which we do, physically we do, and then we do mentally. We do in so many different levels where you can actually feel, sense, just like the example I like to use is just the surface of your skin. If you just put your hand on your skin like that, you can feel that. And it's so incredibly sensitive that if a little tiny bug walks on there, you know about that. Well, that's the upside. You're really sensitive. But the downside, if something comes in and heavily, then it senses that too. So then you have suffering or pain. It's a matter of having 6 sense fields, 6 sense organs, 6 kinds of sense objects coming into the field of each different consciousness. Just like even with the eye, something that if we look out, we can see things that are beautiful. We can also see things that are not so well organized, to be polite, that are difficult. And a lot of times this translates into the sense of thinking. So we see something we don't like and we immediately think about it, we judge it, we add on to the suffering, make it more and more complicated. So you can't really find its tail anywhere. You can't find the beginning of all that. So that's just one of them, suffering. And a lot of that suffering comes out of the second or the other, sometimes they're numbered in different ways, mark of existence, which is impermanence. Nothing lasts. The downside is the things you really like are going away, including your life. Just like Norma Weinstein passed away last Thursday. So we live, and then we go down. Doesn't seem to be any other way to do this other than just you're alive and your awareness, your spirit, your consciousness, your whatever this is. Some call this a soul, some call it a spirit, some call it just consciousness itself that manifests through this living organism we call human being, and has 6 different sense fields that we're receiving things. Quite often we just take that for granted. So much so that if I were to pick someone out here and say, name your 6 sense fields, you'd have to really think about it. To think, well, let's see now. Well, let's see, there's smelling, and tasting, and then there's seeing. Or maybe that wouldn't be a problem. Maybe I'm alone in that. I'm the only one who has trouble with that. So suffering, discontent, dissatisfaction, things are not quite right. This is always occurring. Sitting on the cushion, it occurs. And this is why sitting on the cushion is so powerful, is because you're actually taking the very difficulty that we have with our lives, you're going right down to the actual thing of feeling not so good. And you're doing what? You're kind of insisting on looking at it. You're going to sit still. And that's why it's sometimes called voluntary dissatisfaction or voluntary suffering or discontent. You're actually volunteering to come into a place like this, or into your bedroom or your living room, or wherever you meditate at, and sit down and just hold still and look at your dissatisfaction, or your satisfaction. Could be anything going on. But just the will or the intention to do that is very, very powerful. If you continue to do that, it's called a spiritual path. In other words, you are in this lineage, you are insisting on seeing this for yourself. This is not something this is not. And then the other thing you discover is the third of the three marks of existence. We've got suffering or discontent, and we've got impermanence. You can't find a thing. If you can find a thing, it's not going to last, whatever it is. And you might say, well, atoms last. Well, prove it. So we can have a discussion or an argument about anything. You bring in a nuclear physicist or a particle scientist that comes in here and talks to me. I will do what? What will I do?
Listen.
Yeah. What's the other L word?
Lounge.
That's not bad.
Let them win.
Lounge, lizard. No. Yeah, let them win. Yeah. Lose. Yeah, lose. It would lose. You can't enter into it. Anytime if you notice that, if you enter into an argument with someone who is basing on opinion, in other words, solid reference point. Well, I don't care what it is. I don't care if they're right, but you should always lose. You should always lose. Awareness is always rules. Awareness is king. Awareness is queen. Awareness is the emperor. Awareness is the dictator. Awareness, awareness, awareness. Not what arises in awareness, but awareness itself. Do that with your life. If you're in your awareness, you will no longer make choices about anything. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you should ask questions. I may not be able to answer, but go ahead.
Why should you lose?
Because if you operate in terms of trying to win or trying to convince the person that your way of seeing it is correct, as opposing to their opinion or idea or presentation, what you're doing is reestablishing some kind of polarity. So it doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong. That's beside the point. We're only talking about awareness. We're talking about a spiritual path where you actually transcend the separation between yourself and other people.
What occurs when you go into a discussion or argument with no desire to come out on top? How is that different from its opposite, going in with an agenda to win? What comes out of that that's different?
Simplify your question.
What comes out of a situation when you go in without the need to win? What comes out of that?
Insight into the fundamental nature of this world and reality and who you are, and what your identity is in relationship to everyone else's identity.
What does it do for the other?
Confuses them because they're expecting a foe. They're expecting. Sometimes people will even chase you down and try to make you fight with them. They need an opposition so much, and they're so sure that, and they think you're trying to get out of it. You're trying to go away. You're trying to. They don't realize that you have some insight into it, and the insight would be warfare doesn't work. Even if you're right. It just doesn't work. It does not work. So impermanence, suffering, impermanence, and the last of the three, and we can discuss any one of these questions about them. The last one is no self. There's no self in the skandhas, or there's no self. There's no solid being anywhere. I'm not saying there aren't beings. There's beings everywhere. There's however many there is here, we're beings. And then there's all kinds of beings inside of us, everything from germs to memories to even a memory is a being. Like we just went back and thought about when JFK was killed, and my feeling was remembering who I was then. I wasn't this person. nowhere near this person. I was, 22 and extremely miserable. I was reading Soren Kierkegaard, the existentialist Danish philosopher. I couldn't understand it. So very difficult work. You've read some of that. Yeah. Shoka.
How do practicing forms help us to relate to those experiences outside of meditation?
So Shoka's asking about practicing forms, and the forms we do, just like we did this morning. We did a memorial service for Chime's mom who passed away, Norma Weinstein. So we use a form in order to give us some kind of, it's like you have something that's kind of nebulous and all over the place, and you have insight about it, you have understanding about it, and you know what you want to do or not do, and you know what works and doesn't work in a way, but you can't really find a way to work with it, and so you end up just let's go get some ice cream. Really, literally, we find something, we're onto something, our insight's starting to rise, we're starting to understand something, but we don't have a form for it. And so people who are highly motivated and highly intelligent will start to create a form. They'll become philosophers or psychologists, or they go to school and find a form in school. They become trained to do this, that, or the other thing. Whereas in this situation, which is what Shoka's asking about, I believe, is we have forms here. We chant sutras. We have the strongest form we have here is hold the body very still and observe. It's called meditation. Lots of forms of meditation. There's lots of kinds of meditation that are really more about just trying to get yourself to feel better. And not wrong, you should do that. If you want to feel better, then sit down and hold still. Probably better to close your eyes, because if you close your eyes, that more approximates sleep. So you can kind of, and then say Om, that helps. Say Om a lot. And don't misunderstand, I'm not making fun of people who say Om, because the people who actually practice, mantra practice, Om, Ah, Om, Vajraguru, Padma Siddhi, Om. They do that hundreds of thousands of times, not just Om to feel good. So they actually do it so that it's just completely boring. Where's I going with that? Why do we have forms? So the idea is to have a form so that our wild and crazy mind that wants this, doesn't want that, likes this, doesn't like that, not sure about this, I need to check that out. But so-and-so checked that out and they said, don't go there, that's a waste of time. So I'll do this, I'll do that. Maybe I'll try meditating. Well, then you come in here and you find out, we aren't fooling around. This is serious. If you come in here, if you live here, if you become a practice resident, you are required to do sitting meditation 6.5 hours a day, every weekday. Not quite that much on Saturday, and hardly anything, only 10 minutes on Sunday, like we did this morning. That's not for everyone to do. We're not here to promote it. We're not advertising, hey, come and meditate. This is really great. We're all going to attain enlightenment. Bring money.
Yes.
But what I can say is, out of a insight into what I've seen over, and I'm old. I'm an old man. I'm 74 years old, so I've seen a few things. I've seen quite a bit of scenery go by the mind screen, and the way it looks, it is very simply, it's basically Buddhist teachings. But if each person could just slow down, hold still, and just watch what's going on in the mind for a while, they would begin, after a while, it takes a while, they would begin after a while to see the way in which they keep creating more and more war for themselves, keep fighting with themselves. And you know, the interesting thing about warfare, you can't stop it by going to war with it. But this is what we do. I got to stop that. Or else we cover it up, put it under an army blanket. Put it in a gunny sack. You know what a gunny sack is? JD does. hide it somewhere, keep it. In other words, ignore it. One of the three poisons: passion, aggression, and ignorance. Passion would be the way to get rid of it, is just explain it, have a lot of opinions, get on a talk show, those kind of things, or have your own talk show across the kitchen table about what you think, about what they're thinking, about what they're thinking, who's thinking about this, what should we do, what shouldn't we do, what should we do about ISIS, what should we do about, it's just people are actually looking at their projections in their mind. No one is really looking at ISIS, and I don't mean to get particularly political here, but awareness, actually, if there's a lot of awareness, which that's what was happening here. You sit on this cushion, look at the wall. There's a lot of awareness going on. If awareness starts to rule your life, if you start to lead with your awareness, so when you walk in a room, you're not thinking your way into a room. What's going to happen? Who are they? What would I say? What would they say about what I'm saying? What will I think about what they're thinking about what I'm saying? Maybe I should go in there. But instead, if you lead with your awareness, in other words, lead with another way of saying it, lead with your heart. Lead with your feelings. Be willing to feel. Stop covering it up with ideas and opinions. Sometimes when we're willing to feel, then we start to feel, yeah, but if I do this, I don't know what my emotions are going to do. So maybe I should just stay home. Sir?
Sometimes the feelings are very quickly contaminated or laminated to thoughts. How do we build space between the feeling, which comes up very clean, and the thoughts, which tend to cloud it up?
Okay, so thoughts, feelings. Trungpa Rinpoche, my teacher, used to say that emotions or feelings were just high-speed thoughts. They're just really cranked. I guess that's a way of talking about it. I don't know. I agree with it necessarily. I don't know. But I do know that if you sit down, hold still, and spend a lot of time on a cushion, looking at the wall or looking at the floor, hold very still, then you'll begin to see for yourself, outside of my opinion or anybody's opinion about what to do. I'm here to help you do this. I'm not here to do it for you. I'm not here to get you to believe in what I say. I often say to people, when you leave, forget everything I said. I don't care if you remember it or not, because why would I say such a thing? Because I know that if I say something that's important, you won't be able to forget it. A week from now, you'll think about something that I said, not because I'm such a smart guy, but because I'm as sincere as I can be. I'm as genuine as I can be, and my intention is to help you where you're at, not where I think you should be, but where you're at. So therefore, there might be 3-4%, maybe 10% of the people who are listening to this Dharma talk that will connect with some spark in you where you realize that needs to be nurtured. And the only way you can nurture that, the way it looks here, there might be other ways, is to sit down and keep looking at it, keep looking at it. Awareness. It's like we're stretching, it's like we're exercising something. Instead of exercising the mind, which gets all kinds of exercise, instead of exercising that, we're actually looking at the space that the thoughts arise in and exercising, you could say, and to emphasize, which rhymes with exercise, the space in which things occur. It's like looking at the sky and seeing and knowing that it's the sky rather than it's just a bunch of clouds. The clouds in the sky. Like the Trungpa Rinpoche was shown a picture at one point, as the story goes, of a square, and there was a bird flying in it. And he said, someone said that was a picture of a bird, and he said, no, that's a picture of the sky. I think that's pretty cool. So, marks of existence. Everything is unhappy on some level. And everything that is a thing, anything that is a thing, is disintegrating or leaving or going away or coming to an end. Anything that begins will end. And then the other one is everything that you see is without a separate identity or say some city around you because you'll say, well, that's where I was born. That's where my dad lived. Your dad probably didn't live on Jupiter. But I'm just saying that simple situation, just missing a train. I mean, look at all the causes and conditions. We're always looking at this and saying, well, I'm going to, as if we're making choices, when actually, I don't know if we're really making choices or not. The illusion of choice is very, very powerful. It's so powerful that you'll actually spend a lot of time trying to decide stuff. What do I say about that? Don't bother. Figuring is like this, figuring. I would say what is more important about anything that looks like a decision is to just continue to look at it. Continue to look at it. If it looks like, should I do this or should I do that? Dependently arisen. So any kind of sense of a solid being here is dependent on all the other apparently individual things for its apparent individuality, or however you want to look at ego question.
From Ashley Carter Youngblood in Kalamazoo.
Hi, Ashley.
She says, the talk about trying to make forms of things reflects my growing understanding of everything in life being about trying to control / gain knowledge / conquer. Is this how you see it?
No. That was the question, wasn't it? No.
What do you see?
She didn't ask me that. You did.
Well, I can ask a question on her question.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. I'm ready.
What do you see?
Not separate. Nothing is separate.
Tell Ashley.
Nothing is separate. She's looking right at me. Nothing is separate. So I don't mean that to be disrespectful to what you're saying, Ashley. But I'm saying that we need to drop into the primary understanding of it. And what is primary is the awareness of what this is, a big picture. And I'm not discounting your attempt to do this or that, or move things this way or that way, or get control or better understanding. We're all trying to do that. But the primary situation is to see what this is, awareness, to see the lack of separation, to see the apparently separated things. I use the example of the hand, very separated fingers. The thumb is not the first finger. They're two completely different things, yet they're not separate. They work together. You don't have to tell the thumb to move towards the first finger to pick something up. It just does it. That's happening everywhere. That's happening in this floor. It's happening in the computer. It's happening everywhere. Lack of separation. It's getting. You could say it's getting worse, or you could say it's getting better. Take your pick. It's called duality. Things are getting worse. No, they're not. They're getting better. And you could talk either side of it. You could talk either direction, just like the people do with drone planes. You can get on either side of that. You can get on the scary side. Well, we've got to do this. What if they come over here? Or you can get on the other side. You're bombing innocent people. Yes.
Okay, so she has a couple of other follow-up questions, one of
Good.
which, well, how do you see it, which you've already said.
Yeah.
But then she asks, can you say more about the illusion of choice and how much time we spend on that?
Yeah, that's very good. Oh, thank you for that question. That's a very good question. Very good. So the illusion of choice, the illusion that we have enough information to even make a choice. You can't see all the causes and conditions that arise as two options. It's limited. I'm not saying you can't see some of it, but you don't see it very deeply, more than likely, because we're so magnetized by things based on our desire, our wish to be right and to be correct, and that actually clouds your ability to see something correctly. I like to say, and I'm saying again, because I like to say it, all evidence is partial. I don't care how much evidence you've got. If you have evidence that somebody came in and murdered somebody because you have a video of it, how is that partial? It's partial because you don't, even if you were there and saw it, it's partial evidence, because all you see is the actual coming together of someone's knife in someone's body. But you don't see the passion, aggression, and ignorance that's been going on forever between those two beings. You don't see it. You just see perpetrator and victim, lock them up. So you continue that polarity and increase that polarity. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying we need to open the jail and let murderers go. But I'm saying we need to look at it with intelligence and see what it is. And it's time consuming. It's just much easier just to take the person and lock them up. That's why I often say with so many things that involve choice, don't do anything unless you have to. That means you'll sit there and you'll wait and wait. Well, I don't have to do it. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do that. You need to get a job. No, I don't. Maybe people will feed you. I mean, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying there's kind of a right or wrong. What is important is to bring as much awareness into that as that you can, so you can actually see that in any person's individual scenario here, which I have no idea what your personal life is like, but if you hold still and look at something you're about to make a decision on and just don't do anything about it. I'm not saying, of course, don't be silly. I'm not saying that, well, I don't have to go and pour water on that fire. It hasn't reached me yet. Your house is burning, in the bedroom. You're in the living room. It's not here yet. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to be ridiculous about it, but I'm saying that don't move into a space based on hope and fear, based on fear that somebody else will get there first, or based on hope that this will work out, like you're at the casino. Don't do it. Don't even come here unless you have to. And what is ultimately being said is the word that most of us don't understand is be patient. Wait, see what's really true. See what's really happening with any given situation before you jump in with your opinions, your agendas, your ideas, your hope and fear, and your desire for results.
Do you believe we can see what's really true?
First of all, belief is not a word I use.
That was
It was a mistake. You could rephrase that, Gary.
Will I ever see what's true?
Well, I don't know if you will see what's true, but the desire, or using the function of desire, being a human being, looking at situations and wanting that. If you want to see what is fundamentally true or ultimately true, then I think it's possible. Just takes a lot of work. Yes.
Another follow-up question from Ashley Carter Youngblood. She says, so it sounds like the irony of me seeing things as attempts to control is just another attempt at form.
Read that again.
So it sounds like the irony of me seeing things as attempts to control is just another attempt at form.
Could be. Could be, but not necessarily. It could be. She's there, yes. You're there. Could be. Good question. So I would say, in response to the question, though, I would say keep looking at the control form, the desire to have things other than the simple truth that the Buddha discovered 2,500 years ago. The Four Noble Truths, they're really powerful. If you understand the Four Noble Truths completely, you're liberated. But you have to understand them completely. Life is suffering. The cause of suffering is what? Wanting things to be different than they are. So here's the way things are. And you, if you want things to be different, you're going to suffer on some level. And that can come to an end. That suffering can come to an end. And the goal of which is the third noble truth, Nirodha. And the fourth one is the path leading to that, which is in our tradition, Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna, or discipline, hold still. Samadhi, look right at it, and Prajna, see the truth for yourself. Nothing is separate anywhere. Yeah, Shoka.
How can understanding be incomplete?
It can be complete if it's relative understanding. It's called a concealer truth. The concealer truths are the truth of like someone murdering someone else, which is you see it happen, it happened. So he's the killer or she's the murderer, and that's the victim. But it's incomplete. So your understanding about that is just partial. It's relative truth. And so in order to see ultimately what that is, you have to see ultimately what this is and see that this is not a solid being. We're not saying there aren't 50 beings in here, just like there's 1,550 billion people in the world, right? I don't agree with that. You didn't count them. You ever notice how people say, well, there's 5,560 something or others? And don't you want to say, did you count them? They didn't, probably. And besides, if they had, 3 more have jumped in. Go ahead.
Well, I think you already responded to my next question. What is a complete understanding of the Four Noble Truths?
Yeah, complete understanding is seeing nothing is separate. Your suffering is not separate. It doesn't mean that if you're awakened, or if you're enlightened, or if you're a realized being, if you're a Buddha or a Bodhisattva or an enlightening being, it doesn't mean that you are not going to suffer or not going to have difficulty. It doesn't mean that nothing is separate. So even the suffering itself, you're no longer separate from it. You've been trying to get rid of it, which is part of the suffering, wanting something to be different than they are. So it's a willingness, you could say, to suffer. But it's not something where you're martyring yourself. We're not talking about martyrs. That's more about solid beings who are donating themselves to some kind of so-called higher purpose by surrendering giving up their life.
Is there a reference point in complete understanding?
No. How could there be? Not separate. Because the reference point would be separate from the understanding. So we're right back to plus and minus, yang and yin. But at the same time, even the separation is not separate. So everything would be separated again. That's why it's so difficult to understand, because we keep trying to grasp or get, what is it? And it breaks apart into pieces again as soon as you reach for it. It's like grasping at, what is that stuff you grasp at you can't get? Nobody's going to help me.
Straw. Everything.
Straws. Oh, straws. Grasping at straws. What's another one?
Kittens.
Huh?
Kittens.
Kitty hair?
Kittens.
What?
Kittens.
Kittens, yeah. You can't grab kittens, they're gone. Yes,
2 more questions from us.
yes, 2 more questions.
All right, first of all, the
Who's
one
this from?
Lisa Lewitsky,
Lisa.
and she is at
Okay,
home suffering from wanting the weather to be different right now.
I bet she is.
And her question is, are forms basically practice for seeing the 3 marks?
Yes. The way we handle forms here, and then your understanding of forms starts to spread out from the situation by putting yourself in a situation where you're practicing forms. Like I sometimes say, when you chant the sutras, you don't understand them. And sometimes people will leave. Well, I'm not going to do that. I don't understand that. Well, I don't understand it either. It's not about the kind of relative understanding that most people are trying to get at. That's circular. Why? Because. Why? Because. Why? Because. Give up your, did it shut off? Give up your private space. Give up wanting your computer to work. You're connected. There it is. Okay. I'm back, Chief May. Give up wanting this Dharma talk to make sense. We all know how something is going on and we want something a little bit different. We want a little bit more understanding. We want something. We want something to be different. You have a question? Your pencil's sticking up. Okay, wait a minute. Jesse has a question, and then I'll talk to Sanjay. Yes.
Is ignorance is like a tool or weapon of warfare?
So one of the 3 poisons: passion, aggression, and ignorance. Those are the 3 ways of avoiding what is true or real. We pull on it, passion; push on it, aggression; or we shut down, block ourselves out from it, ignorance. So what's your question?
Going through passion, aggression, and ignorance, I can see the warfare of passion, the warfare of aggression. Is ignorance a tool for warfare?
Yes.
And how so?
Well, just like we ignore that when we eat bacon, that living beings are slaughtered and not treated very well, and we just go ahead and eat their bodies anyway. It's ignorance. Yes.
How about when we're ignoring parts of ourself, when we turn that inwards?
Very, very similar. Very similar kind of thing of just shutting off whole parts of ourselves. You guys know what I'm talking about. Things get triggered and boom, because it's been ignored. So the idea is to bring everything into the light, bringing everything into awareness. Bring everything in. Don't hide anything anywhere. This doesn't mean stand up here and admit to being a murderer, or admit to being, even if you have murdered, doesn't mean putting yourself out on the public stage and having a big confessional. It means seeing it for yourself. If you see it for yes.
Well, how do you soften that ignorance and how do you soften that ignorance when you're not sitting, looking at the wall?
You go back and sit some more. How do you soften you sit? That's why we sit. And then the intellectual part we study. So we study 10 hours a week here as a group. We study as Sangha. Anyone here, if you can come here, you can study at least an hour every day and sometimes a couple hours, besides the 6.5 hours of sitting meditation. So both of those are important, sitting meditation and using concepts to understand the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 3 marks of existence, and to understand all those conceptual things that have been discovered by the Buddha and other teachers down through the centuries and been passed down. This is a lineage. That's what we chanted, all those names. Those are the lineage holders, down through all the years. More?
Oh, yeah, but,
Yeah, but
well, I'm referring to when you said listen and lose.
yes,
I'm trying to
listen
get
and
into
lose.
that, and apply that concept to ignorance. Ignorance being something we use as warfare.
Ignorance is something we use as warfare. Yes.
Can we lose to ignorance?
So the idea of losing, it's a path. It's about the path. It's about the path of awareness. In other words, when you see objects, things coming up that are challenging or not obeying your wish, I would say lose. I'm not saying fall over and let them jump up and down on you, but I'm saying lose here. You don't have to lose as well, I give up, or you're right. I don't mean things like that. I mean have that feeling when there's a feeling of loss, just to be willing to witness that feeling. If there's a person you're engaged with and they may or may not be seeing that. Usually if you're engaged with somebody, they're so tied up in their warfare with you, that they don't even know you're just willing to lose. So you can't make a program out of it. You can't come back and say, well, I'm just trying to lose and you're fighting. Because obviously you're still fighting if you do that. Which doesn't mean walk away. Walking away could also be ignoring. But walking away could also mean just ending a situation that is ridiculous to keep going, because it's circular. The person or the situation or the company or the organization or your boss, whoever it is they're just biting their own tail, and they just want you to come in and fight with them about it. People pass their whole lives fighting, trying to win. Even if their cause is just, still warfare is better to bring awareness in and see if we can't soften things up that way. Okay. Sit a lot.
When there's a pressure to find a source of discontent,
Yes.
and stories are popping up, and the tendency is to invalidate the stories.
Yeah.
How do you accommodate that craziness?
I think to even be able to speak about it the way you're talking about it, but just to continue to do that, it tells me that you're already looking at it. So I would say bring more awareness to the thing you just described. How do you invalidate that? How do you see that it's untrue? How do you see that the story, is that what you're saying? How do you see that the story is untrue?
No, the tendency is to invalidate the stories.
Oh, okay.
So it's just this little storm. Yeah.
I think by observing that without necessarily cranking up a motive about solving it, I think looking at that very closely, you will see where it's getting its fuel from. It's being fueled by something. Passion, aggression, and ignorance is coming. It's being fueled by some kind of situation. So seeing that, I think, would be helpful. More? Or you could ask the question a different way if I've not really.
No.
No. Okay, Michael.
When you use the word lose, you're not also using the word surrender. So you can lose without surrendering.
Yeah. I don't really say surrender because it's just too fancy. I mean, there might be some surrendering going on for you personally, but that's a word that carries a lot of kind of overdoing it. I'm saying you're actually doing something when you surrender. And I'm not saying you need to do that. I think awareness is more important. But when you lose, that means there's something that is going on that you would like to be different or like to win or have your way. And I would say just have a willingness to not press the issue. Yes.
When you use the word surrender, that means you've gone to war.
Probably. Yeah.
So to lose without surrendering.
Yeah, it's more like if you use the same images and to go the direction that you're saying, if you surrender, that you're right. That mean you would be fighting and you'd have to surrender. So I would think lose works better just because you're not really doing anything. If you don't do anything, you're losing because you're not fighting back.
What's the difference between ignoring a feeling or emotion and simply observing it without grasping onto it?
I think to be able to talk about that in a way that would really be helpful, it might put you further into more analysis of it. I can see that that's from your question. I can see you're doing some of that. And I would say the way that you personally, and this may fit for others, but for you personally, what I'm getting from hearing that question, getting quite a bit, and what I'm hearing that the response that you would need to hear is hold still, stay in your senses, sit, hold still, sense of touch, sense of taste, sense of hearing, sense of smell, sense of seeing, stay in those, and don't get rid of the sense of thinking or that part that you just described, but just let it know it doesn't get to drive the it doesn't get the steering wheel all by itself. It has to include the other senses. Excuse me. That will soften things up in that area quite a bit, so that your clarity around that, I think, will be stronger. But it takes time. It takes a lot of sitting still. It takes a lot of. You can't be like a weekend warrior. Once in a while meditate. It'd be better off to go to a movie. But meditation seems to take some kind of intention that set up a schedule. Say, I'm going to sit for an hour a day for the next year. Be proactive. Ruby just came in. Hi, Ruby. Have a few minutes left. Any other questions? Any questions there? None online? Yes, goes on.
Earlier, you were talking about different forms of sitting.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned going to your other senses.
Mm-hmm.
So the mind isn't dominating?
Pardon me? So the mind isn't dominating?
Or the thinking process isn't?
Yeah, it's not quite.
Control.
Yeah, just flash on the other, how this feels, how this looks. Yeah, this. Yes.
So why aren't some of the other forms of meditation that you mentioned, like focusing on the breath, closing your eyes, doing a mantra, why aren't those better to practice if it seems like when we hold still and observe what continues to move, it seems like it's the mind that's so busy.
Mm-hmm.
So why is observing what arises, what moves most, not conditioning that to just keep digging that trench?
The way it looks over here from practicing a lot of that stuff is that finding a way to emphasize or strengthen that which sees, not that which accomplishes. So what people might ask about the hidden question is, how do I get rid of this crazy mind? Or a lot of forms of meditation that are along the lines of what you're saying actually block off, or actually forms of ignoring it. And even those forms you can do, but you need to have a close relationship with a teacher. in order for those kinds of forums to work well. That's how it looks. Not necessarily correct, but more question is good if you have it.
Well, if we're sitting watching the wall, observing,
So you're sitting and watching the wall.
observing what arises or what moves, and it's a story.
Yes.
And so it does its thing, and then the same one comes up, and we're just observing.
Yeah.
Is that going to strengthen the power of that story?
Doesn't matter. See what your question is about a weak story and a strong story. We're right back to relative truth again. I'm not saying we should leave relative truth out. We're not trying to ignore it, but we're also not going to go in and necessarily use that as our determinator for what's a valid thing to do or not. Awareness, regardless of what happens, awareness is what needs to be primary. And you know, it can be missed. You can spend 20 years doing, I know people that spend 20 years doing meditation practice and are still not sure what it's even about, why even do meditation practice. They've done it diligently for a long period of time. So it's very easy to miss. Too much there.
Is that your answer?
No.
Okay.
You're spinning around. It's and I'm following what you're saying, but it's too much, you know, it's a circular logic, and it makes sense. You talk to anyone but me, you're gonna have a conversation on your hands. But you talk to me, I'm not doing it. I'm not going in there. It's like if you're on a tilt-a-whirl, you know what a tilt-a-whirl is? It's spinning around, and you know, and you don't get on those if you've eaten anything, because it's going to come up all over your, you know, pantsuit. You're on that, and you're saying, "Come on, I want to talk to you about something." No, I'm not getting out of that. It's like that. It doesn't mean that what you're saying doesn't have some, you know, it shows that you're intelligent and that you're actually thinking about that situation. And what I say is, get off the tilt-a-whirl, sit on the ground, and just watch the tilt-a-whirl. Just watch it go round and around and around and around and around. Your question is coming from the point of view of the spinning. But it's a good question. I'm not sure whether I gave a very good answer. Yes.
So is the question based on wanting the story to go away? Is that the expectation, perhaps?
Ask her.
Is that what it feels like? One. I guess when I get into a question that keeps arising over and over again, I know I want to know, when is it going to stop? When am I ever going to not have that story to consider? I don't know. Do you have that?
I don't know, sometimes. Or maybe the story comes up and then it goes away, and then it comes up stronger and then it goes away, and then it's even stronger. And thinking, well, maybe just looking at it is making it stronger.
You don't even have to watch Netflix.
No, it's cheap.
You should watch your own mind. You have any questions, Ruby? No? Darn. Why not? Mm. What? You didn't say that this time. You didn't. You said, I don't know. She didn't say it. Mm. Yeah. Any other? Before we, no. Any? No.
Carrie has a question.
Okay, Carrie.
She's a science teacher.
Oh, you had to put that out there.
A science teacher has a question. Okay.
A human being has a question.
Human being has a question.
based upon a feeling that I had a few weeks ago. A sense of discomfort. And when I spoke with Unyo, the only word that, with my limited vocabulary, that I could put on it was cultish.
Yeah.
Sitting here among others,
Mhm.
listening to a teacher, and I'm going, whoa, wait, maybe this isn't.
Yeah. It's a cult. Yeah.
That was the only word that would come to my mind.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what started it and couldn't put my finger on it.
Well, people, there are cults. And the interesting thing, the way you know something is not a cult if you're coming in, is you're free to leave. And no one will ever give you no one will ever, I mean, they might call to see, how's it going? But that's it. It will never be, why don't you come? We don't do that. Everybody gets respect as being an individual being. You get to do what you want with your life. Don't meddle with anyone's life, including somebody that is really close to you, unless they're 8 years old. Then you get to meddle with them. You get to meddle a lot. But you don't meddle with other people, and that won't happen here. You'll come, and if you come, I think it's wonderful. I think you should be here. But that's just how it looks to me. If you leave, I respect your karma and your life and what you need to do with your life. And it may be something completely different than this. I think it's important. And you don't find that too often in especially spiritual path or churches or religious. People think they're right. I don't. I also don't think I'm wrong. I don't think anything about it. I relate to everything where it's at, every person where they're at. If you come, I'm happy to see you. If you leave, have a good journey. It's a very powerful, whereas a cult will be, trying to convince you, trying to make you conform in some way, or use guilt or use your confusion against you to manipulate. It's called propaganda. That's why I say to people, just if you're not clear on what I'm saying, then you will get it when I say, leave here and forget everything I said. Because I know that it's a relationship with your intelligence. What you need to remember, you will. If you don't need to remember this, then this might just be a day you spend at a Buddhist temple, and you'll go, become a skydiver or something. I mean, even that can be a cult, because everybody thinks what they're doing is so great, and that you should do it too. All you should just do is such a great rush. Well, I've done that. I'm not that bored. Just go on a plane and jump out. The first time I did that was the last time. And my chute opened inside the plane. And it was fluttering like this, and it was getting ready to go outside and rip me out of the plane and rip the plane apart. And I was flying in a Cessna over Lake Elsinore in California, in the Mojave Desert. And the guy who was flying the plane said, we landed, and I'm sitting there. I'm like 19, sitting there. And he says, so let's get up. You want to get another chute and go up again? And I said, I'm 19, and I'm also a Marine, so I'm really proud. I don't want to. This is a lieutenant, and I don't want to say this, but I think, yeah, let's get another one and go back up. And I did. I went back up, and I got it. This chute was packed better, and it didn't come open inside the plane, and I jumped, and it was good, and that was the end of it. I don't do that anymore. Lucky to have lived through it. Anything else about cults? Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Yeah. If somebody's trying to manipulate you, it's red flags should go up everywhere. If something is really genuine and honest, they're going to trust your intelligence. You decide whether this is something you want to do. This is way too hard to do, to try to seduce somebody into it or advertise that we're right and everybody else is wrong. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dedicate the merit.
We do have donation boxes in the hallway and also online. If you go to our website, there are buttons there where you can donate. We would appreciate your help.
May the mirrors penetrate into all places so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji-o-san, Shi-son-bu-sa-mo-ko-sa, Sokukojai. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita,